Let's talk about private equity. It's an industry with trillions of dollars under its control, but it kinda operates in the shadows. And, it's got these two completely opposite reputations. On one hand, a creator of incredible value, and on the other, a predatory vulture. So today, we're gonna find out why.
Vulture Fund. Wow, that is a heck of a label, isn't it? It paints this really vivid picture of a predator just circling a weak company. So how on earth did a massive, powerful part of the financial world get stuck with a nickname like that? That's what we're here to unpack.
So that vulture label, it's not some random thing. It comes from three very specific and, highly controversial parts of the private equity playbook. Let's break them down, one by one.
First up, and this is the big one, the absolute heart of the controversy, the leveraged buyout, or LBO. This is the main tool in their toolbox, and you've got to get your head around this to really understand the whole debate.
Okay, so what in the world is a leveraged buyout? Well, it's when a private equity firm buys a company using mostly borrowed money. But here's the twist, and this is the real kicker. That huge new pile of debt, it doesn't go on the private equity firm's books. Nope, it gets loaded directly onto the company they just bought.
Think of it like this. Imagine you want to buy a house to flip it, but instead of getting a mortgage in your name, you somehow get the house itself to take on the mortgage, using its own value as the collateral. You put down a teeny tiny deposit, you get the keys, but now the house is on the hook for all the massive loan payments. That, right there, is the LBO in a nutshell.
So this all leads to the central question, right? Is all this debt a brilliant financial tool to fix a struggling company? Or is it a dangerous trap just waiting to spring?
And this is where the two sides really go at it. The critics call it a wild gamble with someone else's chips. I mean, if the company can't handle the debt payments and it sinks, it could go bankrupt. People lose their jobs, communities can be devastated. And the private equity firm, well, they might have already made their money back just from charging fees. But the industry has a totally different story. They say the debt is a feature, not a bug. They argue they often buy companies that are already struggling, and this immense financial pressure forces a new level of discipline that was desperately needed.
And look, this isn't just some abstract financial theory. We've all seen this play out. Think about the collapse of beloved brands like Toys R Us or Sears. These are the names that are constantly held up as the poster children for what can go terribly wrong when a company gets saddled with debt from a leveraged buyout.
Okay, so the debt is just step one. Once a private equity firm takes control, what do they actually do? Well, that pulls back the curtain on the next major debate, the aggressive changes that almost always seem to follow.
And again, we've got to ask about the real motivation here. Are these changes a smart way to restructure the company and make it stronger for the future? Or is it all just about a quick and dirty flip for a fast profit?
It really depends on who you ask. Critics see mass layoffs, they see research and development budgets slashed, real estate sold off, and to them, it looks like the firm is just gutting the company for parts. They're hollowing it out to make it look profitable just long enough to sell it off. But the industry says, no, you're missing the point. These are the tough but necessary choices to make a bloated, inefficient company competitive again. They say they aren't just cutting, they're also investing in better technology, smarter supply chains, and stronger management to build a fundamentally more valuable business.
All right, finally, let's talk about the private in private equity. Unlike the companies you see on the stock market, these firms and what they do are largely kept secret. So it makes you wonder, right? Does all this secrecy just help them make tough long-term decisions without having to listen to the noise from public shareholders? Or is it just a convenient way to avoid being held accountable when things go south?
And here's the final divide. Critics argue this lack of transparency, this opacity, means less scrutiny, fewer rules, and way less accountability to the public, to employees, or to anyone outside their tiny circle of investors. On the flip side, the industry argues, hey, our investors are huge, sophisticated institutions. They know the risks. And they'll say that being free from the constant pressure of quarterly earnings reports is exactly what allows them to pull off a difficult turnaround that might take years to pay off.
So when you look at the whole picture, the high-stakes game of leverage, the aggressive strategies, and this veil of secrecy, it all really boils down to one fundamental question. And this is it. This is what it all comes down to. Can a business model that is laser-focused on generating huge profits for investors also be good for a company, its employees, and its community in the long run? Or are those two goals just fundamentally incompatible? Private equity is an engine of radical transformation. There's no doubt about it. They take a company, they change it dramatically, and then they sell it. But the question we're left with is, when that transformation happens, who reaps the rewards and who really ends up paying the price?